things. We are very happy to have you all here. The breakfast is $8 per person. We pay per head, so whether you consume or you don't consume, we still ask you to pay the $8, and we encourage you to consume. And as an educator might say, the most important meal of the day. I think they're changing their stand on that, though. I'd like to go around the room as I'm standing in for Elaine, who is in California, and I'd like to go around the room and ask everybody to just introduce themselves, indicate the organization that they are affiliated with, and if there is any announcement for that organization, we'd be happy to have you make it, but it's got to be brief, okay? That's the one caveat. And finally, because we really need to also make sure that we have time for tidbits by Jeff. So I will start on this end.
Good morning. Malcolm Froman. I'm on the Summit Board and I'm president of the Larchmont Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force.
Doris Block. I'm on the Summit Board, member of the Hunger Task Force, also on the Town of Mamaroneck Traffic Committee.
I'm Janet O'Connell. I'm local Summit Board on the board of At Home on the Sound. And that's about it.
Jeff Megan, Summit Board, president of the board of LMC-TV.
Harold Joel, Larchmont Historical Society.
Frank Owens, parent of a child in Mamaroneck High School and a volunteer in a variety of clean energy initiatives in the community.
Debbie Trepanier, parent. My first time here, came to check it out. I have 3 kids in the schools.
Dave Finch, trustee, Village of Mamaroneck.
Ann McAndrews, Mayor of the Village of Larchmont. Today in the Village of Larchmont is Election Day. We have 3 wonderful candidates running. They are running unopposed, but please do not criticize them for running unopposed. It's something I haven't figured out what to do. But anyone who is here who is a member of the Village of Larchmont community, I urge you to vote. That way you are validating all the hours that end up going into good local government. Thank you.
Bruce Megan, member of the Larchmont Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force and lay leader at the Mamaroneck United Methodist Church.
Hi, I'm Lisa Urban. I'm District Office Director for Assemblyman Steve Otis, and I just wanted to say he's sorry he can't be here this morning and is in Albany fighting to get as much education aid as possible for our schools. Want to start here?
Tom Murphy, I'm councilman in town of Mamaroneck, and we have a board meeting tomorrow night if anybody wants to show up.
I'm Laura Eckley. I'm the director of the Larchmont Library, and you should have in front of you a flyer listing all of the wonderful events in April for the program that the Larchmont Library and the Mamaroneck Library are holding together, One Book, One Community, for reading boys and girls.
Hi, Jane Ryan. I'm the chairman of the board of and I have something to say about everything.
Hi, I'm Jane Elgin-Eny. I'm a town councilwoman in the town of Mamaroneck.
Abby Katz, town councilwoman, town of Mamaroneck, and in the Hunger Task Force board.
Good morning, I'm Debbie Minetta, Director of Public Information for Mamaroneck Schools.
Hi, I'm Sari Winter. I'm a parent of 3 children in the district, and this is my first time here, and I'm an interested parent.
I'm Tammy Burks. I'm the Associate Rector at St. Thomas's Church in Mamaroneck, and a mother of 3 children, one of whom's over the district and 2 who are currently.
Kay Francis Richards, the Summit Board and Human Rights Committee.
I'm the Reverend Carol Gadsden. I'm the rector of St. Thomas Episcopal Church. I'm a Summit Board member and also a board member of At Home on the Sound.
Mary Lee Barrage, Summit Board member, Interfaith Committee, Women's Club, Human Rights Committee.
Ann Bukowski, St. Augustine Church, and local Summit Board.
Terry Newmark, Head of Youth Services at the Mamaroneck Public Schools.
Bob Hyden, Summit, and At Home in the Sound. Mike Rosenbaum, I have a grandchild in the public schools.
Marlene Colbert, I'm a retiring trustee of the Village of Larchmont, along with the wonderful mayor of the Village of Larchmont. We're both retiring, but I would like to announce on April 10th, Grow It Green. Any of you who are interested in sustainable gardening, the tri-municipal community is having a huge event at Larchmont Temple from 1 to 5. Kim Ironman, if you want to look her up online, is our keynote speaker. So anything you want to know about sustainable gardening, please come on the 10th of April.
I'm Sabrina Fiddleman. I'm a member of the local summit board, also the Hunger Task Force, LMC-TV, and the Senate. And thanks for coming. Melanie Gray, Vice President.
Hi, Nancy Sellingson, the Mamaroneck Town Supervisor.
Greg Howells, Rye Neck.
Christy Derrico, Village Justice, and more importantly, I will be doing a rowing demonstration, which I've been snookered into. April 16th. Not right now. With John Burney, we'll be rowing up to the harbor at about 9 a.m., so let's hope we don't flip.
Jim Needham, the Mamaroneck Board of Ed.
Mary Stetson, Stetson Real Estate.
Thank you all very much. And now I'd like to, before turning this over to Sabrina, I think we have our tidbits today. Jeff Megan, please.
Morning, everybody. I was worried I wouldn't have a tidbit this morning, but in fact I had a fabulous tidbit about the automobile industry and Larchmont. And apologies to the gentleman from the Larchmont Historical Society and to Neidra Gillette, who was supposed to be here to listen to me, former head of the Mamaroneck School Board. But late last night, I changed my tidbit. And I changed it because of the fact that we have two schools represented here today. And I changed it because of the two athletic events that occurred last weekend. Yes. The more famous of the two is that the hockey team won the New York State Championships at against West Genesee in Buffalo, of all places. And they got home late last Sunday night. I heard all the fire engines go past about 200 feet from my house. But it was an exciting game. They won 1-0, and Tommy Spiro made 27 saves, and he was the tournament MVP. And the winning goal was scored by Michael Carducci, who also, I think, scored the first goal in the section finals. But also, the day before, the Mamaroneck High School girls won the 4x800 relay at the New Balance Indoor Nationals. And in the process, I'm reading from some quotes from the Lowhead paper, our real local paper. In the process, Mamaroneck, which held the top 2016 time in the U.S., broke that, clocking 8 minutes, 58.86 seconds. Sherry Rawls, Lauren Chapey, Lauren, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Spitz, and Katie DeVore, who ran the last leg. Three of them have been together since the 8th grade. Most of the senior hockey players have been together forever as little kids on the ice. They beat North Rockland by 0.77 seconds. They beat their powerhouse runner Alex Harris, and Katie DeVore started out behind and, quote, pulled something out of me I didn't know I had, pulling away at the end, crossing Harris just at the finish line. They had two longtime terrific coaches, Mike Chaparelli, who obviously has 2 state championships in 2 different sports this year, and Bob Morrissey, the track coach. But what does this have to do with my tidbits, which are normally historical? And this is all very exciting, but there's a theory about our school districts. And the theory is that families come out from New York, and this is a very transitional community, and they come here for the school districts, and that's a good reason. But when the last kid graduates, they put the house on the market, and they're out of here. But these two kids, Mike Carducci and Katie DeVore, have a different slant. And I want to know if anybody realizes what that slant is. The slant. There you go. So both of these kids, who are really absolutely wonderful, stoic young kids, both academically and athletically. Mike Carducci, his grandfather and father run an excavating firm in Mamaroneck, and they've been here. And his great-grandfather, as an immigrant, started that business. They do a lot of work for the communities. It's been a stalwart business for, this is going to be the 4th generation. If you ever want to put an addition on your house, you've broken a sewer line, they do work for the town, the villages, absolutely stalwart. And they've been here forever. And Mike is a product of, yes, the community and the school district, but more a product of his family. Katie DeVore, similarly, has a grandfather that operates a local business. Not many even know. Carducci is easy because it's the name of the firm. But Katie's great-grandfather started that business over 70 years ago by building his own wooden barge and cleaning bottoms of boats. Her great-grandfather was Howard McMichael, and her grandfather is Howie McMichael, who continues to run the 2 McMichael yards in Mamaroneck, in Rye Neck in one, and the town of Mamaroneck in the other. And they are, both families, again, Katie DeVore is a product of her family, as well as the school district and what we have provided. And by the way, just as an aside, the hockey team has a member named Tucker Light, who happens to be a first cousin of Katie DeVore, and the same great-grandfather. And her grandmother is Joan McMichael Kelly, from the same family. And so I leave you with that we have people who don't transition out of the community. We have families who stay here for generations, and they still produce highly qualified individuals. And watch local live. It's got the hockey team this week on Thursday night.
I'll just add a tidbit, just to set a context to the girls' accomplishment. Shari Rawls had the flu leading up to the race 3 days in a row, and we didn't know if she was going to run. And Katie fell during practice, and we thought we'd have to take her away in an ambulance. So her accomplishment, running a 2:08 split, was phenomenal. If you have a chance to watch the race, she really ran an incredible time, and it was so exciting. I was screaming at the computer.
Thank you both, and thank you, Jeff. Also, by the way, a product of our community.
Right, generations.
And generations, and siblings, and all that.
Yeah, I allowed my brother to be here.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Fiddleman, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're very happy that we have the superintendents of both local school districts. We've asked them to speak about the state of our schools. Some of the topics we've given them, but of course, they know more intimately about what's going on than we do, but we've asked them to think about the impact of the tax cap, what's going on with Common Core standards, changing demographics in the community and its effect on the schools, any new challenges and initiatives, and of course, a budget outlook. Sorry, I'm not good with all these papers. We've given each gentleman the floor for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll take questions at the end. Dr. Mustich will be speaking first and quickly. He is a lifelong educator in the Rye Neck Union Free School District. During his 44 year career with the district, he's held a number of positions: classroom teacher, building principal, assistant superintendent, and currently superintendent of schools. Dr. Mustich holds a number of advanced degrees, including an MBA in finance and a doctorate in education from Teachers College of Columbia University. He's proud to have the privilege of working in a school district that's committed to student success, not only by word, but by action. He credits his success with the good fortune of being surrounded by very smart and hardworking education leaders. Under his leadership of the past 22 years, or does that make it 25? 25 years. The Rye Neck Union Free School District has transformed itself into one of the premier districts in the county by improving facilities, enriching curriculum, expanding the quality of teaching and learning, and focusing on each student's strengths. Dr. Mustich's goal continues to be to provide a personalized educational plan for each student by identifying strengths and offering myriad opportunities to explore individual talents. And I give the microphone to Dr. Mustich.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Is that okay? Does that work?
A little
Okay. A little closer. Is that better? Okay, does that work? Oh, good morning. Thank you for having us this morning. I get to go first because I think I'm in town longer, so Bob said, go ahead, you go first. One of the things that I think is key and essential to why it's so successful, our schools, both our schools, is the amount of local control we have. And that's something we've been talking a lot about and having conversations with both our legislators and with our Board of Regents and yesterday with the commissioner. The fact that local control has the ability to decide what's important for their individual community is essential for schools to do well. And that's reflected in what you heard about the wonderful athletes from Mamaroneck and some of the programs that we have in Rye Neck. It's a direct result of individuals, school board members, working hard every single day toward a common goal of what's important, not only for the school district and the students who are presently in it, but for the greater community at large. What's essential and what do you value as a community? One of the things that we do in our district as we start our year and our budget preparation is a group of parents that we put together called Programs and Priorities. They're actually not allowed to talk about budget or money. They're only allowed to talk about what they value and what's important to them. And in those conversations, the school board hears what is important to our community and what has kind of changed over the years. During that process, and it's an ongoing process that starts in September and runs right through budget season. So we meet once every 4 or 5 weeks. The goal is twofold. You tell us what's important. You tell us what you value. You tell us what works for you, and then you move forward to what's changed. What do we need to have changed? Simultaneously, during the month of February, because of the size of Rye Neck, I have the opportunity to meet with every single senior. And I've been doing that for the last 25 years. The value in meeting with our senior class is that they're our clients. Some of them, and I call them lifers, have been there since the beginning, since kindergarten. And that opportunity to be able to have a few minutes of time with each of them and have a conversation around what they value, what's important to them, what do they see as the strengths and weaknesses of our school are very, very interesting. The conversations are invaluable. They've directed the kinds of coursework that we've chosen. They've directed things, for example, as simple as moving the senior parking lot to avoid them walking through the middle school, which nobody could see but them. We've put in walkways as a result of that. We put athletic programs in as a result of those conversations. And we've made changes in the quality of our teaching staff based on what they see as important and what they value and what they see the strengths of good teachers are. The interesting piece about those conversations is that I find them to be very reflective. They take a lot of time. They come very well prepared. They're articulate about their position, and they're very grateful for what the communities have done for them and the successes that they're achieving. So it's a wonderful opportunity for me to re-energize and think about what's important as we plan for the next school year. One of my board members said during the budget process, and that we were talking earlier, the budget process has gotten started so much earlier. We start right away. As soon as the budget's passed, we're looking toward next year about what we need to do. It's so complex and it's so challenging today that it takes every bit of effort. And the school board was saying, we're doing our first presentation tomorrow. My school board president said to me last night, said, this seems like such a long process. Yeah, because we've been doing it since last June. It's imperative that we have the appropriate funding to provide the comprehensive programs that make quality schools successful. That only comes with a lot of communication and good community support. Over the next year, we're going to be looking at a bond in Rye Neck. That bond is probably going to be one of the largest bonds we've ever passed. The reason being, we need to change how we're delivering instruction. we're looking at our STEAM program, we're looking at our sciences, we're looking at how we're delivering instruction. And to that end, we need a facility that's going to be able to match that. So as we move forward, as we look forward to the next generation of students, we need to be prepared. We need to have our facilities in such a condition that the teaching and learning that we're producing now can look forward to the future. So that's one of the changes that we're coming to. Our budget this year, as we looked at, the tax cap is ridiculous. It's onerous, it's unreasonable, it makes no sense. This year for Rye Neck, it's 0.33. It equates to $117,000 on a $40 million budget. It's unreasonable. Last week, we had the opportunity to be up at Lobby Day with the legislators. We had this conversation. I was told repeatedly, the governor has no appetite to talk about this. I don't believe that anybody really understands that the 2% is not 2%. I said to one of the legislators actually, John Flanagan, at least give us 2% expense cap. If you did that, I mean, I can't even believe I'm actually saying this after all these years, that if I had that, I'd be thrilled to death. That would actually make it an easy process as we were moving forward. That said, the board labored. Do we exceed the cap? Once again, another onerous piece. We have a 60% supermajority that must pass this budget with that kind of a cap. We have never had a problem passing our budget in our community. We're very fortunate. We have extraordinarily supportive population. That doesn't mean that when you exceed a cap, that's not going to become a problem. So the board is very concerned about that. And the concern is much more that if you fail, you actually go to zero. And then what happens to our programs? What happens to our students? So very concerned about that. That said, the board thought for a long time. We had a lot of conversations about changes that we're going to do. And this year, we're throwing the largest amount of money from our reserves in to make up the difference between the cap. We had an $800,000 gap through a number of changes in personnel and cuts in program, minimal cuts in programs. We put together a budget with a $400,000 input from reserves that's going to be below the cap. That means that our tax rate for Rye Town will be negative 9.63, and for Rye City, negative 0.40. So we're well below what would happen. That doesn't mean that your actual taxes would do that, because fortunately for us, our assessments are going up. People want to move here. I mean, the other day, one of the real estate agents called me. We were having a conversation. There was a house on Wagner Avenue, two houses in, the second house in from the Boston Post Road, right next to the car wash. It just sold for $1 million. Pretty amazing that would go for sale at that price. At least I thought so. It was a shock to me, but what I'm hearing is this. People coming up from the city mark circles around train stations and say, I want to be in walking distance to the train station, I want to be walking distance to schools, I want to be walking distance to a village. So the good news is they're coming up for quality schools. The good news is they're coming up and buying houses, and the value of the houses are in place. So we're doing our job. We're finding out that we have extraordinary students doing very well, having wonderful opportunities. 97% of my students go off to colleges, with 2 or 3% going off to the military, and one young man taking a gap year and going off to Europe for a year and traveling the world. So very fortunate young people with high expectations, hard work, and good skill set, prepared to do well in the next phase of their life. That's a direct result of the support they receive from the community and the comprehensive programs and the hard work from the schools that are happening every day.
Thank you, Dr. Mustich. I heard a lot of oohs and ahs, so I know you've given us a lot to think about, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. However, before that happens, Dr. Robert Schaps. This is Dr. Robert Schaps' 6th year as superintendent of the Mamaroneck Union Free Public School District. During his tenure so far, he has worked hard to continuously improve the quality of Mamaroneck's educational programs while holding down the budget's growth from year to year and staying below the state's allowable tax cap. With a focus on teaching students to be confident, critical thinkers and equipping them with 21st century skills, Dr. Shaps has led the way in introducing important STEM, now STEAM, I guess, that happened fast, and literacy initiatives throughout all of our schools. He and his administration believe strongly in maintaining rigor and high expectations for every student, with the umbrella goal of educating the whole child. They have worked tirelessly to inculcate a growth mindset philosophy among all faculty members. Prior to coming to Mamaroneck, Dr. Shaps served 4 years as superintendent in Hastings-on-Hudson and 3 years as superintendent of the Manchester-Essex Regional School District, that's a mouthful, in Manchester by the Sea, Massachusetts. He has extensive experience at the secondary level, having served as principal of Manchester-Essex Regional School District's middle high school. This has been noted as one of the highest performing high schools in Massachusetts based on student performance on state exams. He has also served as assistant principal at Londonderry High School in New Hampshire. Dr. Shaps grew up in Chicago, Illinois, graduated from Scarsdale High School, and he and his wife Kathy have 4 children and 2 grandchildren. And now, Dr. Shaps.
Thank you. And in many ways, I would echo Peter's comments. When we talk about the state of their schools, I would say that Mamaroneck Public Schools are in great shape. We're not only addressing the needs of students now and here and now, but really have an eye towards the future. And one thing I want to mention is that part of our strength or our success is really attributed to the co-governance model we have. I have a quorum or more of board members here today, and I think we work very well together in terms of looking down the road at what I would say our system challenges, the challenge we face for the long haul, but also attending to the here and now and thinking about what we need to do for our students and for our community. This summer, we started the process of reviewing our system challenges, looking at issues like poverty, changing demographics, enrollment increase, and space availability, and also financial sustainability. And a lot of these big issues are interconnected and tied together, and they don't have easy solutions, or the challenges that come from each one of them really take time and consideration to figure out how to move forward. At the same time, there really, as Peter has mentioned, it's a shift in thinking about how do we prepare students for this future that we aren't quite sure what it's going to look like, and what are those kind of requisite skills and dispositions and experiences that students will need to meet with success down the road. And so it really has been kind of moving the Queen Mary, or turning the Queen Mary, in terms of moving from what I would say is an industrial model of schooling that's been built for 150 years, and thinking about this idea of innovation, meeting the needs of students. And that includes, as we mentioned in my bio, thinking about the social emotional well-being of our students, giving them an opportunity to grow as a whole child, but also creating authentic learning opportunities. We have had a wonderful year where Joe Liberti just came back from what I would say an authentic political experience, taking his AP US government students to campaign side by side with both Democrats and Republicans in the New Hampshire primary. And learning by doing is that mantra that really changes perspective of students and gives them a level of expertise and confidence that we think should be inherent in our day-to-day experiences. We've strengthened our relationship with Sheldrake Environmental, taking advantage of our local ecosystem and our ability to kind of do hands-on science, because we really believe that getting kids acquainted with their surroundings will have them become stronger advocates for their environments and for being good citizens. This Friday, we talked about our athletic success, but this Friday we had local citizens in the STEAM field, or the STEM field, who were able to give their perspectives of what is it like to work in the area of robotics, what is it like to build the Tappan Zee Bridge, or what is it to kind of think about future initiatives in terms of startups, and giving kids the chance to really understand before they leave the nest, so to speak, what's out there and what opportunities they have available. We have, in a short time, invested in really building a very strong computer science, computer programming experience for our students. This year, all of our 2nd through 5th graders are being introduced to coding. Our middle schools have a 3-year coding part of their technology program. And we now have over 10% of our high school students enrolled in computer science after 3 years of developing a 4-course program. Students are doing and participating in robotics competitions, in app development competitions and national and international computer competitions, getting really a chance to apply their knowledge in the classroom and see how it unfolds in real-world settings. And so certainly we appreciate that experience. All of this adds up to how do we invest in quality teaching? How do we think about changing the nature of teaching and learning in our schools and make it relevant for our students? At the same time, how do we ensure that all students succeed? And that really translates to a philosophy of finding the programs and the experiences that students require, and then building those budgets that will make it happen. We really haven't paid much attention to the Common Core insofar as we know that we've been living in a standards-based learning environment for a very long time. And so we've tried to at least use the standards as a guide, but as Peter mentioned, this idea of local control, understanding what does it mean to teach math well? How do we promote literacy so that we know and we have evidence that students are learning to read, write, and in some ways express their point of view? So really moving away from what I would say is the standards, but focusing on the learning outcomes that we expect for all our students and creating opportunities to assess their progress along the way. And that has really been our experience. That being said, we do have the difficulty of kind of building our budgets under the cloud of this tax cap. And our tax cap growth factor this year is 0.12%. So as Peter mentioned, it's relative to 0 as opposed to 2%. Our budget this year is actually, on a budget-to-budget level, is going down. It's lower than our current budget. And our tax levy is growing by 0.74%. Over a 5-year period, I think we've had a 1 to 1.3% increase in our tax levy as an average under the years of the cap. So it suffice to say, we have been fiscally responsible. Our greatest challenge is we have been seeing a growing enrollment the last 5 years. Last year alone, at the elementary level, we had a 3.5% increase in our elementary enrollment. And so as you start to grow, the challenge is how do you ensure that you can have the, what I would say is, resources to meet the needs of our students. We have thought, what I would say, strategically and creatively. 4 years ago, we introduced a dual language program for the district, housed at Mamaroneck Avenue School. We're about to introduce our fifth cohort of kindergarten students, and we're starting to see the fruits of that investment as it plays out in terms of students being bilingual and confident in speaking and listening and writing in 2 languages. And we know that that is a wonderful way to honor a very diverse community and school system and use the strength of students' backgrounds as a means to have them succeed in school. So we're watching and really studying that program as a means to say, can we think differently about challenges and in some ways meet with success? So that's another point I want to make. In terms of the overall budget, our biggest challenge is that our expenditures continue to outpace our ability to grow the budget. And I think, as Peter suggested, we would love to see a 2% expense cap. We know that if that was a reality, we wouldn't be having the difficult task of removing items from what I would say critical resources from our budget, and been able to think about adding and enhancing programs, not about maintaining by cutting, and that really is a challenge for us. Overall, I'm very proud of the work of our teachers, certainly of all our 800 employees in terms of our administrators, and how we're thinking about, again, the whole child, how the board supports major initiatives to not only connect learning inside the school every day, but giving us the opportunity to go out, go forth, and to bring community members in to make us successful. It's been another great year for our seniors in terms of college acceptances. We continue to ensure that we're promoting opportunities or pathways for students to learn in different ways. The board and the community has supported a design program, a design thinking program. We're going to continue to grow this 4-year course sequence, which really provides students understanding the foundations of design thinking. We are expanding our culinary arts program. There's a lot of interest to have a multi-year program to connect with the local establishments for those students who'd like to go into the career of food science or culinary arts. We are expanding our computer science and engineering programs as well, because we really believe these are the fields of the future and want to make sure that kids have the greatest advantage as it comes to the just foundational knowledge in those areas and to be able to go forth and be successful. So there's a lot of exciting things happening. This budget next year, we're going to add a music experience at our middle school students. We really believe that as a core value of our schools, that all students should have a 3-year middle school music experience. And so we're creating a electronic composition course for students to be able to kind of take their vocal talents and translate it into high tech. So we're very excited by that course as well. That's a sense of where we're at. I don't know, I can go on forever, but overall, we're going to keep doing innovative things and certainly look to support of our community to do well.
We're very appreciative to have two such thoughtful people at the helms of our school districts. What I'd like to do is open the floor to questions. These gentlemen do not need me to moderate for them. But what I'm going to ask is that you raise your hand when they call on you. Please stand up, give us your name, ask your question. One of these gentlemen will repeat your question so that the entire room can hear it and the cameras can pick it up, and then they'll answer. Thank you so much.
Good job, no questions. Oh, this looks like a plant.
To go anywhere, just
So I'm Ann Lobu, I'm the president of the Mamaroneck School Board, and I wanted to ask Dr. Schaff a question. You said that expenses are going up. What does that mean? Why are expenses going up, and what are the cost drivers?
So why are expenses going up and what are the cost drivers? It's fairly simple. 80% of our expenses, we're a people business, and 80% of our expenses are tied to salaries and employee benefits. And that continues to be the largest part of our budget. And so certainly to attract and continue to meet our contractual obligations for salaries, we're growing at a faster pace or beyond what we're able to grow under the tax cap formula. At the same time, that we're thankful that our pension contributions have seen a positive turn in the last 2 years. We're challenged by both meeting the contribution rates of the state retirement system, both for teachers and I would say classified personnel. We have 2 pension systems, as well as meeting our obligations around health insurance for our employees. So when you put that chunk of expenditures together year to year, we are certainly growing beyond the 0.12% growth factor that is inherent in the cap. I think what's interesting, we have a budget that's over $130 million. Of that, a very small part of it, I would say, to Ann's point, is discretionary funding. In other words, when we start to, at the end, argue about what we can continue to include in the budget, we are talking about dollars and cents, and it's almost, in some ways, a little bit absurd that when you have a budget over $133 million, that you're fighting over $300, $500. And that is precisely because there's so much of our budget is really tied to contractual obligations and expectations to meet mandates that we have no freedom from.
No, that's accurate. Yes.
Does the tax cap itself change the way you're budgeting? I don't mean this as an attack, it's just reality. Are we budgeting for the cap or for student needs?
You know, it's interesting you say that. When every year we start this discussion, the board has had that conversation around what do we need to do. So they constantly ask me, put together the best budget that's going to meet our needs this year. And then we'll make a decision about how we're going to fund that. And if that means we have to exceed the cap, well then so be it, we'll go out and exceed the cap. We haven't done it in 5 years because I think the reality is that's a very frightening experience, because once you do and you fail, if you fail, it's Russian roulette with programs and students who have needs in the school district. So there is a concern about that. I think from a school board perspective, it's about quality programs, it's about improving the quality of those programs moving forward, and changing the way we're delivering instruction. The challenge is that the cap is so onerous and it's so bizarrely formulated that it really doesn't relate to what's happening in the real world, whether it's for a municipality or whether it's for a school district. And you've seen a number of school districts, Bedford, for example, North Rockland, for example, who after years and years of staying within the cap, have now faced this wall of running into expenditure shortfalls of in the millions of dollars, $8 million, $12 million. North Rockland's $15 million gap between their actual budget and the cap. So that's what's going to be happening as we move forward. It's not an answer. It was always expensive to live in Westchester County. It was never cheap to live in Westchester County. And the reason is we have quality public schools that reflect what our communities want. That's an imperative that we can't do away with. And as a result of that, at some point, school boards and communities are going to have to wrestle with, do we exceed that cap and do we come up with this? And it's so artificial. Where does the 2% come from? And then how does this arbitrary cap come to be? And how does that impact what you're doing in schools? So I think each school board, at least my school board, and I'm sure Mamaroneck does the same thing, thinks about the quality of the programs, what's going to ensure the success for our student population now, and what's going to maintain those quality of programs for the quality of what happens in our communities. I mean, we have a responsibility to educate the next generation of students. As you so well said, generations of people have lived here for a reason. They have lived here for the quality of the schools, for the quality of the programs. Good schools create good citizens, and those good citizens maintain quality schools and quality programs.
Follow up
Sure.
on a strategic level, if the cap is so low this year, might it be better to try and override it this year? This way it goes to zero, you're not really losing it.
Right. So it's interesting because yes. So the question is, if things are so low now, why don't you take advantage and go over the cap? I think the reality is that you have to look beyond in terms of building your budget 1 year at a time. But the uncertainty as to whether we're in a deflationary environment and things are going to get worse the following year, that really you are, in some ways, in our mind, we're always building the budget based on maintaining and improving our schools. But we have to be mindful of when to and what is strategically thoughtful in, as far as when to go to the community to say we need an override. I can tell you that a local community that passed an override last year, they're in a position where they're thinking they would need an override this year, but they know they can't 2 years in a row, and now have already set their sights on an override the following year. I think what I was going to add to Peter's point is that in Massachusetts, there's been a cap for many, many years, since the mid-'80s. And the intent was to be able to say at some point, the community needs a course correction, that as expenditures continue to rise year after year, you need to have an override to kind of bring things back so you can kind of manage things. The uncertainty about the way this cap is organized, you could be in the same boat next year, and if you committed to going an override, the conditions that you are on, you really can't plan for, may be so real that you need another override just to maintain the quality of programs. So it's not so easy just to say, let's do an override now because it's favorable environment, because we have no idea, and we do modeling of what the cap will look like based on a growth factor.
And
One of the reasons behind the cap, the mantra, has been to force efficiencies on the part of school districts and local governments. Given that there is a difference between the way the cap is calculated between municipalities on one side and school districts on the other. However, the efficiency mantra is the same. So, gentlemen, what have you been doing about efficiencies?
Well, the question is about how have we taken advantage of creative efficiencies to reduce the impact? I don't know.
Yeah.
I can tell you, for example, one of the, first of all, for 2 years in a row, we were very proud of the fact that not only did we stay under the cap, but all of our eligible citizens were able to qualify for the state rebate, the tax rebate, right?
Right.
So we have met that standard by meeting what the governor expected around efficiencies. We decided to evaluate a change in our health insurance. Several years ago, we went to a self-pay model. That alone, by the savings, and we've saved over $3 million over the last 2 years, has qualified us for efficiencies under the state plan. In addition to that, we've really uncovered every rock of our program, our organization, and looked for those efficiencies. And that's anything from how we use copiers, to how we assign and establish positions, to to how we think about collaborations in terms of purchasing and bidding to get the best price. So we have looked at every aspect of the organization, from hiring to assignment of personnel, to savings in materials, to bids, to find savings that allow us to really, again, focus in on program and experience in schools.
But I want to say something. I don't think it came as a result of the tax cap. We've been doing that all along as a result of having to present a budget to a community. To be fiscally responsible to a community, our community, we have constantly been looking at efficiencies and ways to improve. Whether it's the copiers, whether it's we've moved to a Google platform so we can all be anxious, we can all use online materials, whether it's energy efficient lighting that we've installed throughout the schools. All of those components have been happening for years within our schools. The state, as I say, the state cap, the governor uses 2% expense cap for the state budget. The fair line would be 2% state cap. In the municipal government, although we have certain exemptions that you don't have, it simply means the municipal board votes on whether you're going to exceed it or not. In our world, it means the greater community, which is a challenge to begin with, because most people, really, unless they're very invested in the schools, don't vote. We have the potential we have 6,500 households, 1,500 and change voters, and at any given election, the highest election we've ever had has been 800 votes. So, 5,500 eligible voters. And the highest we've ever had in the history of our schools was when the roof collapsed many years ago when I was brand new superintendent, and we had 1,500 people vote. Since that time, there have been 700, 800 voters consistently. That's just the nature of the process. So
can I just add also, one of the things that is not talked about is the additional mandates and kind of directives that we have to account for in our budget. So in our particular case, as I said, we have a growing enrollment, which means that we have more sections of students, more teachers, et cetera. At the same time, we're dealing with challenges of changing demographics, of mandates from concussion management, okay, which certainly is important and critical to our safety of our kids. But none of these mandates come with state support. These are expectations at the local level, and then we have to identify resources. We have to actually invest in many different aspects of day-to-day experiences, but we are not seeing support in terms of Albany. At the same time, we're advocating for getting back state aid that was promised to us in years past that was taken away and now is being given out piece by piece, but doesn't account for the loss of state aid. So it really is a structural flaw, so to speak, in terms of dealing with what I would say is a lack of support, additional mandates, and the challenges of spending money on things without any choice.
Jane Orens and I served on the school board way back 100 years ago when in fact things were different, and when in fact there was a huge outcry from people who were seniors in the community, and we actually lived through an austerity budget in 1968 in the Mamaroneck School District. But I wonder, aren't you also, you talked about the money that we've all gotten back. I'm one of those people. Anybody in the STAR program, and a lot of people here who are young who don't even understand that. Is that one of the things that drives this for you at all? Because we've all gotten a big check.
Yeah, I've heard people say, "Oh, thank you so much, we've gotten our money back." But I've also heard people say, "That's not the driver for me. I mean, that whatever that number is, isn't going to make a difference in my taxes. What I'd rather see is the value of my schools continue to grow." So I think
how about you as superintendents? Are you thinking of that? I don't need that money particularly, but is that a problem for you? That all the people who are older would come out with a 60% override.
I have to say, I believe this very strongly. We have a very strong gold card club where our seniors participate on a regular basis all during the school year. So we have, over the years, I've developed a great relationship with lots of people. My seniors aren't the people voting no on our school budgets. They understand the relationship. So I don't think it's an age situation, because I can tell you that My seniors are the people that sit at the polls and talk to me and call me and say, come over here, I think there's somebody going to vote no. Make eye contact and have a conversation. They relate with our student population. They're connected with our student population. To the concept of they've been the support for the schools over the years. They're proud of their schools. They're proud of their community. I don't see it as a generational thing. I think it's just we have this mindset. People now, the governor's been very good about getting us into this mindset that we're going to get this check in the mail, and we're all going to be excited that we got a few $100s in the mail, or there's going to be some reduction in our taxes as a result of that. And it's taken away the ability of local control, people to make the decisions. When there's an austerity budget, that's okay. That means the community's not satisfied with something, and the school board and the superintendent have to sit down and readjust what they're doing. It's not a great plan, it's not something you welcome, but it's something that gives you pause and makes you think about what you need to do next. It's not the end of the world, it's just the next step in what has to happen.
I think we pay closer attention to this idea of building a sense of trust with our community around not only just the budget, but by let's say fiscal management. For an example, I was thrilled that our community came out this year to support a bond for our athletic facilities, our PE areas. I was happy about the fact that there was overwhelming support for that initiative at a very difficult moment, and I think it reflected a level of confidence and trust by the general community that when we ask for something and want to invest in our facilities, that they understand that we really need it, that we have been stewards of the public trust in terms of our value, and we have to demonstrate that every day. And if you do that well, and if you are transparent in your budget process and you can communicate and articulate your priorities, then people will support it. And so it's less about focusing on the rebate, but the broader view of how do you build support and trust across the community, because we know that about 70-75% of our residents are not directly involved in the day-to-day life of schools. And so people need to get their information, but they need to feel it internally and need to feel that sense of trust. And trust in the leadership and trust in the product of the school system. And that's what I truly believe. And I think we've been able to establish it, just as Rye Neck as well. And that's why, we feel very good about the state of our schools at this point and where we're going.
So I'm Janet O'Connell. I'll make a plug for next month's program. We're going to have two people with us from Westchester Community College and Kathy Quackenbush, talking about alternatives for some of the students who perhaps aren't four-year college bound. So you mentioned the culinary program. What's Rye Neck doing for more vocational?
We're really not developing more vocational programs at Rye Neck. Our students that go into vocational programs in our schools go up to the BOCES programs. They're part of the BOCES consortium. So our students would go up to the BOCES programs through our programs. They don't stay in schools.
If I can just say, I see culinary arts as entrepreneurial in terms of where it leads, as well as computer science and engineering. So what we're trying to promote the spirit of entrepreneurs, of really understanding that it's no longer about building a resume in terms of traditional route. It's actually what do you have to offer that's going to be of value going forward. So we want students to learn how to this idea of culinary arts, only because it certainly supports this idea of a healthy lifestyle. But we also want to think about how you can combine that idea with some type of career in the future that you don't even know is inside of you at this moment, that may emerge as things change. So
that's really the key. I think in any program that we offer, we're offering an engineering program that we haven't offered in a number of years. More students have taken that than ever. And the question for us is, well, what's the catch about that program? It's the way kids are thinking. It's not they're all going to run off to be engineers, but it's thinking about what the future's like and what the opportunities are like. So it's offering those different types of programs, whether it's a TV studio program or a music program or an arts program. It's something that catches the student's interest, and they can turn that into a career that we don't really know might even exist now. I mean, that's the key.
And that's why the authentic experience. I watched our student journalists in New Hampshire really rubbing elbows with professional media consultants, having the same deadline to get out a story about the Republican convention, and doing it in real time. And like, you can't replicate that in terms of the classroom. So what you have to do are make these connections and and kind of take the learning where it really exists, and not necessarily just have it exist like we did for the last 150 years.
And by the way, you can't measure that by some state test. That's the key.
Mary, this is great. We have a lot of questions. This is exciting.
Yes.
My concern is for by the way, I'm one of those seniors that's always voted for the budget. My special concern, and I know it exists for many in this room, the children that are apt to be achieving in a lesser way for many reasons that we know can exist, whether it's an economic problem, family problems at home, etc. The kind of thing that you're doing in the Mamaroneck schools, I think is extraordinary. I'd love for Dr. Jeff to touch on that. The latest school board meeting was about how they're addressing the poverty level and then needy children within that. The amazing things some of these students are doing. The other piece of this, summer programs and health care programs. We know about the co-op camp. It's going to happen from what I hear, and I think that's incredible. And that shows the generosity of local people, some right in this room, or relatives of this. In any case, the other piece of it, the health care needs. I know you, Dr. Chaps, have done some study about in other communities, other states. What are they doing in terms of health care needs? And of course, we know we've had a specific issue in our own community. And I don't mean to bring up the tough subject, but
No,
it's
I
a
welcome
reality.
the conversation. So if I can just talk about it, and Peter can chime in at any moment, anytime. We have studied and looked at our broader community in terms of the issue of poverty as a system. I would say that we've had about an 80% change in the rate of poverty in our school system. We really feel that our ultimate goal is to provide every opportunity for students to learn, so we focus less on poverty as in terms of closing the opportunity gap. We want all of our students to know that they can focus on literacy inside and outside of the school. So how do we create the conditions that students in some ways are growing and we can mitigate in terms of the what I would say social impact of poverty. So it's much, our whole shift in mindset has been going from remediation to enrichment, and this idea of if we can get out students to experience and have rich language experiences, that in itself will be an area of strength and help them along. At the same time, it's the homeschool connection, the partnerships, the families, and so how do we strengthen the communication, bring students of low ES, parents of low ES families into the school to understand how they view the world, the realities that they face, and strengthen that experience. At the same time, we looked at, and I appreciate the board's willingness to look at not necessarily controversial issues, but understanding that idea of basic needs. And so we have studied the school-based health center model as a means to say if a student is not coming to school because they have a toothache or they need medical attention, how can we improve attendance by addressing the medical needs of students who don't have access to health care? So for us, it's been really a year-long study of this model. But the first step for the board and certainly for us is to confirm that through a needs assessment that there is an issue that we need to address. As it comes to summer programs, we have spent a lot of time looking at the impact, what I would say is on summer slide. We know that students in poverty tend to take a step back in terms of the reading levels and come into back to school in September behind, so to speak, their peers. I would have to say, honestly, I appreciate and I respect the long-standing co-op camp model. It's been invaluable in terms of not only for our students' families, but also opportunities for employment for our kids. Our ultimate goal is to understand what kind of program we can develop that will really make a difference in the summer. How do we invest wisely with our community partners in terms of resources to provide an experience that really extends learning in ways that occurs during the school year. So it's less, again, about this blended model of social and what I would say physical and academic learning, and trying to understand what do kids need, when do they need it, and how can we create that. Our research tells us taking kids to a museum and then reading books about that experience and having conversations is valuable as traditional experiences in the summer. So I would say this is a transitional period around extended year. and we're looking to rethink that as we should, because you know, things work over time, but you really have to think about changing needs and conditions and say what programs how can we redesign and rethink things, bringing in a larger circle of community members and resources to make this good for our kids and our families. So that's where we're at.
We're doing 2 pilot programs that we started last year, one with the World Language Department that is now working on a regular basis with our students who are non-English speaking, all during the school year. So we're linking up from our department chair, Rita Carolini, who is linking up our seniors, our AP students, with elementary school students and parents on an ongoing basis. So there's a weekly meeting of the student population, and then there's a link up with the students and the parents, and that connection has helped the students feel more connected. It's a big brother, big sister program that's really been growing over this school year, and we hope to expand as we move forward in the following years. The second piece we've done is with a pilot with our kindergarten staff. For any student that hasn't had a preschool experience in our schools and outside of our schools before they enter, we're running a preschool week program for students to get acclimated to what public schools are going to be like, or what the school situation is going to be like. We piloted it last year, it's expanding this year in an effort to ensure that students get off on a right foot as they start our schools next year. So we're understanding that there's some changes to our community, and we need to be addressing that. But it goes back to Bob's point. One more piece that the schools now need to handle that they weren't handling before without the extra resources from the state providing that funding that we so desperately need to ensure that we have those quality programs. We see it, the board see it as a need, but how do we fund it? How do we make sure that it happens?
So I just want to add, if I can, so we really believe that literacy is the key. That is, language-rich environments at home and at school is what we're about in terms of really providing the greatest opportunity for students to learn and grow. One of the things we did, we wrote a grant for a mobile bookmobile. It's really a bicycle that has books. And so this past summer, we ran a pilot based on the research of Allington, where we actually invited our first and second grade students and kindergartners and their parents to pick out 15 books, with the idea that the intervention of just giving 15 books to every family works to improve or maintain their reading as an intervention when they come back to school. And so we're looking at the data. The other thing that I'm very interested in, we've invested in, the board has supported an analytics program, which allows us actually to input our data and look by street, by house, at reading levels. And so our thinking over time is to really target a neighborhood, right? So if we know that we have students who are reading below our benchmarks in a particular neighborhood, we can actually kind of go to where the intervention needs to happen around summer or different times, vacations, and provide those resources and really target kids down to the level of the family. So it is about thinking differently about the same problem, thinking about this idea of not just the intervention being from 8 to 3, but looking beyond that to see how can we get creative in dealing with what is a perennial issue that's becoming bigger in magnitude each moment.
When you go to Albany and you meet with the legislators and you meet with Senator Flanagan, how do they answer you?
I just want to say one thing, and I mean this sincerely. I want to congratulate Peter because we are very busy every day. Peter has taken a leadership role regionally with our superintendents to really kind of meet that head on. He has traveled to Albany, he has traveled to Long Island to try and build a coalition with hundreds of school districts and superintendents to have a unified voice. And I really say that it's made a huge difference. And so I'm going to let Peter speak about Albany because I actually refuse to go. Because I just find that they aren't listening and they don't care. And there's a point where you have to say, we need to focus on what we can control and what we can do, and not bang your heads against the wall. I'm thinking about the definition of insanity, and it's doing the same thing, right, over and over again with the same result. And so I've given up, so to speak, in a good way, by focusing on it.
It's very challenging. I think our local legislators get it. I think the George Latimers of the world, the Steve Otises of the world get it. I don't necessarily think that the unit that we spent last week, we spent time in Albany, all day today in Albany with our Tri-Region Coalition. Bob speaks about. We have a coalition of suburban schools from Suffolk through the Lower Hudson Valley. It represents 700,000 students, 199 schools. So we formed this coalition with the fact that we would then have a power base to really have a conversation with legislators. I can tell you, Senator Flanagan met with us. He was very dismissive. He was very clear. We had put together a charter amendment to work on the whole APPR plan and the funding mechanism. He was very dismissive of that. Amy Poland was able to put it into a bill format and present it. I'm not sure it's going to go anywhere. We want the aid decoupled from the testing. Right now, if we don't meet a state deadline of July 1 and have a new testing profile put in place, which means negotiations on our part and a testing profile in place by July 1, we lose state aid. So we simply asked that they decouple that from the state aid and give us the state aid and let us be civilly disobedient or civilly obedient as we go forward and trying to do our best to negotiate this. Senator Flanagan thought that might happen. He thought nothing else could happen. He simply said, our governor has no appetite, the testing is fixed, everything is fine, you need to move on. Not true. There's lots of complications what's going on. So I think our local legislators get it to some degree. They don't understand the urgency. The interesting thing that happened at that meeting that day, the one note that I took as I listened carefully to everyone, is that what made a difference last year was the parents opting out of the testing. Parent voices opting out of testing made a huge difference. I'm not advocating for that, but what I did walk away and learn is it really comes down to your voices. We send the most tax dollars up to Albany, and we receive the less tax dollars back. I mean, it's ridiculous about what we see in state aid in our schools. Senator Flanagan, I think he does want to be governor, Senator Flanagan talks about the fact that he's restoring GEA, gap elimination. We're going to get that back. It's 1 year. I said to him, Senator, are we getting all of our gap elimination back? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you've taken it for many years. Are we getting all of that back? When you say full restoration, he said, don't be ridiculous. You're getting back this year. For Rye Neck, that's $30,000. It's nothing. So there's a lot of rhetoric going on. I think that many legislators I found do not understand the issue. They simply think it's done. Everything is done very quickly and not very carefully. I think our local legislators do. We've had a number of conversations with them around the issue. Steve and George and Amy Poland have been on the phone with us constantly. I think they do understand it. I think they're fighting an uphill battle with what they have to face.
If I could just add, I think there's been a real and direct failure of leadership.
Absolutely.
On the educational side as well. The Board of Regents, this idea of building and flying a plane and testing it out at the same time in terms of all the aspects of ed reform was ill-conceived and delivered in such a way that it really created a hemorrhage among stakeholders. Second of all, we had the opportunity yesterday to meet with the Commissioner of Education. And in my mind, when you talk about local control, you talk about our ability to develop a supervision model for evaluating teacher performance in a way that works and is aligned with your values. That has been taken away from us. And everybody thinks through the governor's decision and the changes that all is well with the world, but the reality is, as Peter suggested, we have no control right now of what we want to put in place or develop for evaluating teachers and administrators. And it's just lunacy, because I was expecting the commissioner to take a stand and actually stand up and lead. Instead, what we got back is just go through this process. This is going to take time. Eventually we'll be able to, move to an instrument that works. And in our mind, this is the most important thing we do. We need to be able to hire and invest and support the development of teachers. We need to be able to evaluate them in a way that we have a clear understanding of what they're doing and their potential going forward. And not having that ability to do that is problematic. And not having the leadership to stand up and say, actually, we are in charge of education, public school education in New York State, but to allow this to be politicized in such a way is a shame. And it's going to have a direct impact on the quality of public education in this state for a long time to come.
And I will tell you, there isn't a superintendent that I know that doesn't believe in strong assessments. We all believe in that. I've been hiring people and giving them tenure and releasing them from our schools for the last 25 years. No one has ever said, you can't do it this way. We know how to do it well. We're very good at assessing whether that person can work in our school district or not, and whether they're delivering instruction in a quality way. What I said to the legislators and to the SED was, you want to really give us control? Give us 5-year renewable tenure. Let everybody look at that seriously and say, at some point we get a chance to reassess what's happening in our schools. And every single employee has a chance to look at that. That would make a real change. And it's not, I mean, I understand from a union perspective that it's a big lift, but it's an important lift for public education in the sense of what the future will bring. So I believe very strongly in assessment. I don't believe in what's going on right now. It's a sham, and it's a waste of dollars.
Yes.
Hi, Jane, you said that the tax cap affects your personnel decisions. So who decides tenure, and do you ever have to make a decision about tenure based on tax caps and salary levels?
So I'll answer that. First of all, there's been no change to how tenure is certainly how teachers are appointed, tenure and principals. The board has a responsibility to approve tenure. The superintendent has a responsibility either to recommend or not recommend, and that hasn't changed in process. We have invested in a comprehensive evaluation system that is true to our values. We spend, believe it or not, we have close to 500 teachers. We evaluate or visit classrooms no less than 6 to 8 times per teacher. So last year alone, we conducted over 3,600 observations of teachers. We provide teachers with immediate feedback, both oral and written feedback. And then I can tell you from my experience that we meet with the Board of Education 2 times throughout the year to review the progress of every teacher that is under this idea of probationary status. So we look at our teachers who are in the year of tenure, we look at our first-year teachers, our second years, and have thorough summary reports to the board. So I would say that our Board of Education is thoroughly informed with the potential or the progress of each individual teacher, and we never make a decision as it relates to finance. We make a decision ensuring that we invest in the best teachers for our students, and because we believe that teacher quality, this idea of teaching as a professional practice, is the core idea that really, in terms of in my mind, equates to a successful school
And
system.
that's the one place we would never cut. We're looking at programs as opposed to.
I'm sorry that there are more questions, but we unfortunately we're going to have to. I want to thank everyone for coming. I'm sorry that we couldn't answer every question, but we do have a time frame from the diner, and I appreciate you coming. It was really, really a wonderful presentation, and I'm very grateful. And I think we're very lucky to have you both. Thank you so much. And thank you to Sabrina and Lynette for setting up the entire program. And as Janet O'Connell said, we will be talking about local community colleges at our next breakfast in connection with the community-wide book read. Thanks very much.